Hi there, everyone. Thanks for attending the webinar today. Today we're going to run through our P6-Scrubber tool. We will record and share the webinar for those that attend, unless there's a tech problem, but shouldn't be. I remember to hit the button. So today I'm joining you from Calgary. I'm Nicole Jardin, founder and CEO of Emerald. And with me is Sue Familia, joining us from Wyoming, and she is going to do the deep dive on our P6-Scrubber tool. So this is our newest tool. We've got a very strong toolkit related to all of Oracle Primavera CGBU tools, but primarily P6. And it's really because although it's a very, very fantastic tool, there are some common struggles that we all go through. And the P6-Scrubber is focused on dealing with importing. So if you're in an environment where your P6 is not shared out across the group, but meaning the group that's putting the usually construction project together, you may be in the situation where you have to import data. So importing XERs or XML files. We handle both. Plus, we also handle importing Microsoft project files in the Scrubber. Now, the struggle with importing is when you import, P6 doesn't let you clean up all the data that you may not want to have come into your system, into your P6 database. So it starts to pollute your P6. Not only pollute, it could also override some of the things that you've got in your P6. Okay, so what we would call a collision could occur. So that is a struggle. And there's no easy way out of the box to deal with it. So when you have the import, you have some settings, but you don't have enough granular settings to control what's coming in. So that's why we built this P6-Scrubber, to give you much more functionality to control what's coming in. Now, you may be in the situation where you have certain specifications that you've put out to your contractors as well. So there's rules, things that they have to include in their P6 schedule. So it's going to allow you to make sure that that data is meeting the requirements that you've put together. Those are the main reasons that we did this. Now, we support a lot of clients. Some of our clients we've supported for over 20 years. And what we also found was we spent, between ourselves, our team, and our clients' team, we spent too much time dealing with XERs. So a lot of people had secondary databases that they would import into. They would do all the cleanup and then take another export and then bring it into their live system. Very time consuming. And you have to do it every single time. So this gives us a foundation because we can set up like a template, an import template, if you will. We call it a definition, and you can reuse it. So it makes doing that importing and cleaning up much, much faster. And Sue's going to show you that. That's really the other reason that we thought this tool, just for our own selves, for the clients we're supporting, and of course other people would need it as well. So that's why we made it into a product. We had it previously just a utility that we had, but we had enough people wanting a better tool than what was available in the market. Most of the tools available in the market don't work online, live on a database. So Sue's going to explain that. She's going to show you why this tool is probably the best importing third-party add-on that's available on the market today. So the benefits, of course, is just consistency, saving time, allowing different people to be able to do the imports. So that's another thing that we find is because it can be a tricky process, you get a bottleneck because you often only allow certain people to do the importing. So this should allow you to give the importing capability to more people by using the Scrubber. Okay, and the Scrubber, let's say Sue is more familiar with the client than me. She could set up the scrubbing definition and she can share it with me. So I may not be as a senior, she may have more skill set. So there's a lot of benefits that we also have that she'll highlight when she shows you the deep dive. Let me explain how it works, and she's going to show it to you live. So we have a file. The file is going to be sent to us. It could have one project, it could have many projects. We set up a scrubbing definition, and that definition can check a lot of different data elements. So if you're used to using P6, you know that some of the data elements that we've been struggling with for many years that make the files massive are the POBS tables and the risk types. The latest versions are dealing with that better, so that should start to go away if you get upgraded to the latest, so that will be good. But you might still have some stragglers with that, so we take care of those fussy things that can cause the files to be massive. We deal with calendars. So calendars are an important piece because you could have collisions of data, which you do not want. You do not want your calendar to be changed by an imported file. Okay, that's very dangerous. So that's an important one. And then we check things that are shared. So there's lots of global data inside of P6 that's shared across projects. So we let you deal with that by continuing to share them or push them down to project level. And of course, those data elements are user-defined fields, their codes, and cost accounts, resources. The resources, you can't push them down, but we do look at resources, roles, etc. So Sue will show you those in detail. And then we have some validations. So it will show you whether some rules are being broken. Okay? And some examples of rules are IDs and naming conventions. And again, Sue will give you those in more detail. And she's going to show you how the tool actually works. Okay, so I think I've given a bit of an overview, and what I will do is hand it over to Sue so she can do the deep dive and show us live how P6-Scrubber works. Okay, over to you, Sue.
All right. So I'm going to share my screen so that we can see all this in action. First of all, I want to show kind of what this data collision or pollution looks like in a database. So I have a database that's fairly old here. There's been a lot of importing without cleaning up files and things like that. And so really the first thing that I want to talk about are the calendars. So if I open up my calendars, you can see that at the global level, I have just oodles and oodles of calendars. So many calendars. Some of them are probably, the same. Maybe they aren't. You can see that some came in from different contractors. Well, those calendars aren't necessarily calendars that my organization is going to use. So ideally, what you would want to do is push those down to the project level so that it does not corrupt. For one, give you just a huge amount of calendars that you only use maybe for one or two projects. And also, it helps so that everybody there's a standard 5-day work week that comes in with P6. It's one of their calendars that they deliver with it. And pretty much everybody uses this. However, that doesn't mean that how this calendar is set up is the same as the calendar that was either delivered or that you're importing in. And what can happen is if you are importing a standard 5-day work week calendar in, it's going to overwrite how your calendar was defined. So to be able to push those down to the project level is really very smart and useful. Another thing that we see with importing files is that we have all kinds of activity codes that come in at the global level. Again, this is the global level. And so you can see that we've had, this OSTA that's come in, and they have their contractor and their accountability and things like that. But that doesn't necessarily mean that we need to have them in our database as we use them. So again, if we're able to push these down to the project level, we can still maintain those codes and their assignments, but we don't have to fill up or pollute our global activity codes. And Nicole mentioned resources. Now, on resources, when you import in, especially with an XER, you don't have the control of where to put those resources. And you can see, I've got my resource structure here, and then I have all these at the bottom that are just kind of standing by themselves. And these resources are resources that came in on an import that another file used. But there's a possibility that we have duplicates. Maybe we already had resources that we're going to handle there, or we don't know exactly which project or which company these imported resources came to. We find the same thing with roles, because roles and resources work very similarly, and so you're going to get kind of a mess in your database on your resources, because you're just going to have all these kind of floating, I guess, resources that are going to be out there. So we give you the ability to actually land those resources or remap them as you're importing. Now, one other thing, as when you are importing an XCR, let's say I go to import, and we do have some of those definitions that we can do, but on a um, on an XCR, they're really pretty limited. We can't do any remapping. We can just keep the existing, we can update the existing, we can just not import them at all, we can delete them out. And that really doesn't necessarily give you the control that you need. So you'll notice that we don't have global activity codes or user defined fields. There's nothing to handle those out here. And being able to do that is going to be beneficial in keeping your database nice and tidy. So I'm just going to exit out of here, and I'm going to actually launch my other database while I talk about the other one. Excuse me, while I talk about P6-Scrubber. So give me just one moment to get signed in. And let me make sure I'm in the right database. Yep. So when we talk about P6-Scrubber, we can deploy it two different ways. We can deploy it standalone, where it's not connected to any database or anything like that, or we have our live version, which is what most people prefer. Because what our live version does is it's pointed at the database that you're going to be importing in. And we can set it up to look at several different databases. So you can choose which database you want to compare that file with. And when we get in there, we're going to have some nice lookups, some nice places where it's going to show us whether that code or UDF or whatever is found, if it's found in our database, and it's going to kind of guide us and let us know what's out there. So we have several different subject areas, if you will. We have codes at the project, activity, and resource levels. We also have user-defined fields, which also reside at project, activity, and resource levels. So we're able to actually handle those codes, tell P6 what we want to do, or tell P6-Scrubber what we want to do with them. So if I went into an activity code, so this is nothing has been defined yet. First of all, I would want to turn on that validation, because maybe you're not concerned with checking some of these. You turn it on, and then you are able to build out what you're expecting to see in this particular scrub. So I would add a new code, and let's say I wanted it to be a vendor. I could tell it what scope I'm looking for. In this case, I want to handle this at a global level. If I did have it at the project at level, I would provide a project ID. And then it's asking me, what do I want to do with this particular code? Do I want to scrub it out, remove it, or do I want to keep it? So I want to keep it in this case. Now, as I go, you're going to see that I have some kind of coaching that's going as I go through here. So it's telling me an action must be selected. So I selected my action, but I haven't tabbed out of it. So once I tab out of it, it's now going to tell me what the next thing I need to do is. So it's going to say, this is a new code type name. And so it can't be blank. What do I want? If I find vendor in at the global level in this particular file, XER or XML, what do I want to map it to? So I can actually go out and I can just take a look. So I also have a vendor. So I could certainly just map it to that vendor. But maybe I want to remap it to something else that is out there. I could actually choose what I want to rename that code type to. If I wanted to roll this global code down, I could go in and I could simply check mark this box. That's going to take this global code and it's going to roll it down to the project level and put it in that project that it is associated with. So the project that it's being used in. It also, because this is the live version, it's going to tell me, do I have a match in P6 that so it it's gonna let me know what do you have in P6. Does it match, or do you have no code that matches in on that? Now, as you're building this out, if you're building it out by hand, you can also put in your dictionary values. So I can open up that code name and I can see where I have my dictionaries here. Now, if I'm building this from scratch, what I'm going to want to do is I probably want to take my activity codes dictionary and I want to copy it over. So all the values are the same as what's in my P6. So I can copy this and I can take it back over to P6-Scrubber and I can use this bulk edit here and I can paste it in. And whoops, I did not catch that. So let me try again. Then I can paste it in. There we go. And I can see each one of the columns. I don't need that color column in there, so I can remove that. And I also have the header that came in. So I'm telling it to remove that first row header. Those aren't values that I want to include. Now, if you had just a spreadsheet or something that had those values in there, you could do the same thing with that you can actually go in and copy and paste those as well. So once I apply this, it's going to bring them all in, and then I'm going to tell it how I want to handle each one of these values. So in my case, I want to keep them all. So I would go down and I would say keep on all of these. And I could go and I can look up the value. So I'm not going to go down and do all that, but I could also go and I could see the value and I could search in P6 and there's my bird. So it's going to go along and give you your description and let you know what's in there. Now, we can do that with user defined fields as well. So essentially, and one thing I did not visit here, you can, with both the dictionary values and the code types, you can decide what you want to do with code types that come in that are not defined in your definition. So if I don't want any other codes, in this case, activity codes, that I want to come into my database, I can select this. When P6-Scrubber reads the file and looks at what I have defined, if it's not defined in my code types, it's going to delete it. It's basically going to remove it. And it will do the same with code values. So if you're okay with that, with new code values coming in on a particular code name, you would not check mark that. Or if you want no other codes or no other dictionary values to come in, you would check mark it and it's going to remove those. So user defined fields, we have them at several levels, of course, and they work essentially the same. You would enable, and then you could go in and you could start adding them. Now, we also have the ability by subject area to decide what you want to do with extra user defined fields that come in that aren't defined. So if I wanted to remove all the activity level UDFs, the expenses, steps, etc., I could choose to do that. Now, this is how you would build a definition from scratch. However, a better way that we could do this is we could actually import an XER or an XML and see what the data is in that XML or XCR. So we can use this import feature and we can go out and we could select the project that we want to see what kind of data is in it and import it. P6-Scrubber. Oh, I have something going on. I may try that again. There we go. Looks, no. All right, I'm just going to try to log off and back on and see if that's going to fix my issue. So let's go and try to import these files again. All right, it
That's
looks,
a weird one.
yeah, it looks like I'm having some trouble here. Let me use a different version and see if I can at least talk to it. It's going to be a little bit different than what I would normally see in my demo piece, but let's go ahead and see if I can do this. Let's see. All right, so let's try that import now. Okay, looks like it's going to go this time. So it's going to bring in that project and it's going to, when I say apply, it's going to bring in that data into each one of my subject areas. So if I wanted to go into my project codes, I can see exactly what's happening with this project, with each project code. So I could enable this and I can hover over my yellow and I can see that my dictionary has something that's different with it. However, I can see that it matches P6, so that's good. So I'm going to open up my dictionary and I see that I have this DIST5 coming in for my District 5, but I don't have a matching value in my dictionary right now. So what I can do is I can go and I can take a look. I can delete that out. I can take a look and see what my dictionary value is and then select it, which makes it very easy for me to remap to the value that I already have defined. So my District 5 is called D5. I could go in, I could decide whether I wanted to keep or scrub some of these and move on. Now, if I take a look at my user defined fields, it's going to coach me the same way. I have a submitted project ID. If I hover over, I can see that it doesn't have a submitted file name that's in my P6 right now. So maybe I want to scrub that out. So I'm just going to do some quick things here, and then we're going to see another one where we can remap. Now in my user defined fields here, maybe I have something else I want to map it to. I could certainly go in and see what I have that would match. So although I do have a change order number here, maybe I call my change order number, and I want to remap it. But I don't want to keep this one because this isn't one that pertains in my database. So I can go through and I can do that. I'm going to try to find one where I don't think I have one that's going to come up here. I do not. So in the case where P6-Scrubber finds something that is very similar to a data item that is not named the same, it's going to give me a yellow light bulb here. And that yellow light bulb is saying, hey, you have something in your P6 database that's very, very similar, but it's not exactly called mitigations. Maybe it's got a prefix on it or something like that. When that happens, you're able to click in this area and it's going to come in and it's going to show me anything that had mitigations in it, and I could select it. So it is going to tell me, okay, you might have something you want to actually map that to. So as we move down, let's look at some resources. So I've got resources that are coming in. I've got some that match, some that don't. So maybe I would want to remap some of these to something that matches. I could certainly go in and search. So maybe I have something that I want to do, engineering wise, and maybe I want to make it this civil engineering instead. I would need to actually match everything up, and then of course I'm going to get my green check mark saying that I've mapped it where I wanted it to. Um, Also with resources, we have this option up here where I can go and I can choose which parent resource parent I want to land these imported resources in. So if you have a brand new dictionary coming in for your project, with this XER, you could create um, a parent value, and then you could come out and you could select it here, and you could import it underneath that particular um, parent. Now, codes and user-defined fields work exactly the same. And then we also have units of measure. So in my units of measure here, I have linear feet, and I don't know what I have, so I apologize. Okay, so it looks like what I have is a lowercase LF instead of an uppercase. And then perhaps it has a different name on it. So this is going to remap this unit of measure, which was different, of course, in my contractor's database, and it's going to map it to the value that I already have. So I'm not going to have many duplicates of the same unit of measure. I can remap it, and it's going to take care of it for me. Now in calendars, we have at the global level, it's going to show me every global calendar that's going to come in. So chances are I'm probably going to want to roll these all down because I don't want these polluting or overriding my calendars that I already have in my database, even though I have a match in there. So I can also choose that if they are not defined here, if they come in, a new calendar comes in at the global level, I can choose to say, roll every calendar. Other calendars that come in at the global level, I want to roll down as well. Now at the project level, this was something that was requested by a client of ours. They wanted to be able to see what calendar names and which project they were associated with in their XCR. So they got a lot of they were a engineering company that managed contractors, and so the contractors that when they came in, they wanted to make sure that they were using the calendar that was agreed upon for in their XER or in their project. So they asked for us to give this informational piece. So as you see, this is informational only. There's nothing to, you can't remap it or anything like that, but it is going to show you that. We also can handle resource calendars. So I can see that I have that standard 5-day resource only calendar, but I don't have a match. So if there is a calendar maybe that I want to map it to, I could go in and I could start typing. Let's say, I don't know if I have standard in here. So let's say I wanted it to be the structural engineer calendar. I know that these two are the same and I want to remap it. So I can also take a resource calendar and remap it to another resource calendar. With roles, like I said before, are going to work the same way pretty much that resources do. So you're going to see whether it matches or not if you're connected to your database. And you can also import that role, that role dictionary into another role parent. So let's say I wanted it to go into this EEI roles. I could select that, and that is where it's going to import those new roles into my database. We can handle cost accounts so that you can make sure that your cost accounts are in line and working. They're assigned properly, as well as being able to remap it to the cost account that you have in your database. Now, another thing that we've handled here is that when you import a file, that file already has a responsible manager, or that project has a responsible manager already assigned to it. Well, you don't want to import that and create a bunch of additional OBS elements in your database. So you can choose what you want to map it to. So let's say I'm going to take this into the P6-Scrubber EPS, and that is the responsible manager is P6-Scrubber. I can choose this. It's going to go change that responsible manager on that project. So when I import it, it's already going to be set to the proper responsible manager, and I'm not going to import additional OBS elements. Now, in some cases, maybe you just have something very simple that you want to do with your project or with that file. We have this option called the simple scrub. And what this does is it's going to do some very basic things without you having to do a lot of extra work with each area. So let's say I wanted to prefix everything and I wanted a dash to come after that prefix. Then I could go in and I could say I wanted to prefix it with SCR. I have the option of not importing, or in the case of global activity codes and calendars, I could actually choose to roll all of those down. I could roll them down and of course prefix them at the same time, or I could choose just not to import them at all. So I could go down and I could do all that. We can handle all of these pieces of information on this simple scrub. So this is for when you are just doing something very basic and you just want to do a few little tweaks to it and you want to prefix them, either not import them, and maybe roll down some of that global information. You can use this hand in hand with some of your other definitions. So you can use these all at once. So I actually am going to try to go back to my other database, to my other scrubber, because I think it's going to be more meaningful for me to use that for the actual scrubbing. Now, once I have a definition that is set up, I can go and save that definition. So I set everything I want in my definition. I go in and then I tell it to save as. Now, I don't have anything to save right now because I don't have anything applied. But if I went in, created the definition, I could do a save as, and you can see that I can name it. I could put some notes on it. And I also have some icons on the left-hand side here. This is denoting what level this definition is available to. So of course, the world little icon here is visible to everyone in the company. So it's a global definition, if you will. If I had certain teams that were working in P6-Scrubber and we had specific definitions that we wanted to share with just that team, we can also share them as a team to the team itself, or we can actually have a individual definition that only we can see and work with. Now, once we have them saved, what I can do is I can go out and I can choose one. Say I've got it saved and I just want to scrub. I don't want to have to go through and redo that definition. I've saved the definition. I can select it and then I can load it in. So it's going to tell me up here on the top that my definition is loaded. So I've loaded that webinar example definition. If I had imported a project and we could see it, it would have given me the name of the last project that I imported as well. So now when I go in to scrub my files, I just go in and scrub. I already have the definition applied, and I go and I can go to my where my XERs or XMLs are. I can choose one or many files that I want to scrub, and then I can process them. So you can see it's lined up my two files one after the other. So it's going to go ahead and it's going to process each one of those files and give me the results for that. So once I have results, if it's the first time that I'm using this, or I just want to make sure that everything that was done in that particular scrub went as I wanted it to, I can view a report from here. So if I click View Report, it's going to open a report as in HTML and open it in my browser. Now it's going to let me know what the source file name was, what the definition was, when it was done. It's going to give me some summary information about each piece of data that it handled, and it's going to tell me what it did with it, essentially. Now, of course, red means something was changed or added, and green means nothing was required on that to scrub on that particular one. As I scroll down, it's going to let me know in more detail what happened when this definition was run on this file. So the gray boxes are what I had defined, and as I scroll down, I will have some color boxes. These colored boxes are going to let me know what happened. So essentially, my client type, and my type of schedule all came in. Nothing needed to be done with them. But remember, I had that district. So it's telling me that the dictionary changed on my district. I had a change there. And if I go down to where it says my district dictionary is, it's telling me what happened. My original code was dist 5. I had the new code D5, and so it was remapped. So it's going to give you kind of a blow by blow of each piece of data so that you can see what occurred with that scrub. If I'm satisfied with that, I can go ahead and I can download the results. Now, if I'm not, of course, I'm going to go back and I'm going to change my definition. Oh goodness, this is different too. So let me just go ahead and I've extracted it, and you can see, or I've downloaded it, and you can see that I got two files. I have my clean file, the one that was scrubbed, and I can tell because it's appended by the date and time. And I've also been given a copy of that HTML report that we just looked at. So if I were giving feedback to someone, perhaps on their schedule, and I had run the scrubber on it, I could actually take this report, I could copy and paste pieces of it, I could share the whole report, whatever, so that I could give feedback to that person who sent me that XER file or that XML file. So of course, then we're ready to import. So when we import and we come into P6, so I've already imported, so in the interest of time. So when we import, we can see that we have some um, indicators. Sorry, lost the word there for a moment. We have some indicators that come in, and these indicators are going to tell us essentially the same that the green and red did on my actual project itself um, in my report. It's also going to provide for me a notebook with that same report in it. So I'm able to see very clearly what changed on this file and what didn't when I um, actually used or when I scrubbed this particular file. Now at the activity level, let me get a different layout here. Let's go here. It's going to come in. Well, nope, that was the wrong one. Sorry. It's going to come in and it's going to show me by activity what happened. So with my vendor code, everything came in just fine, as it should have. However, with my work type, I had some codes that came in just as they should have. And I've also have some that were possibly removed. And so it's giving me a warning saying, hey, these aren't populated. You might want to take a look at these. Either maybe this value was deleted out, maybe that dictionary value was deleted out, maybe it came in empty, but it's going to alert me of that as well. Now I also have my discipline code, and I've lost a uh, value here. So I want to go look at discipline. Bring that over. Oh, and that's obviously the wrong one. Okay, so on the discipline, sorry, this red value or this red indicator is showing me that the discipline was created essentially. So this, I lost, for some reason, I've lost my dictionary values here. Um, what it was showing me is that was that D5 that was changed on there. And then I had some other ones that came in that didn't have any values, and so it's alerting me to that fact. So I must have done something to my discipline dictionary. I'm gonna have to go and check that out. It's also going to tell me about my cost accounts and my user defined fields, whatever. So it's going to show me per project or per activity what happened with the values there. Now, when we import and we bring in these indicators and the notebook, you do have the option to not bring those in. So if I go in, I'm actually going to now visit this general topic that I didn't visit before. When I go in and to this general area, I can actually turn off the notebook and so it won't create it, and or I could turn off the indicators. So what that's going to do is it's just not going to create them if it's off. So if I just wanted the notebook and I just had the indicators that I didn't want to have, I could turn those off. Another thing I can do in this general settings is that sometimes you either receive an XER that was created in a database that is higher than yours, or maybe you're actually sharing an XER or an XML that you have a higher database than who you're sharing it with. We have the ability to actually roll that version down. So I am working in 21.12 right now, and let's say I received this this XER from someone who is using, well, okay, I'm sending this XER out to someone who is using maybe version 18. I could select this, I could run this scrub, and it's going to demote that version for me. So when they import that into their lower version database, they're going to be successful with that import, because you cannot import an XER from a higher version into a lower version. Now, one thing I didn't also visit was that we can also verify um, project IDs and names as well as activity ID and name. So if you had a specification for a contractor that this is how you wanted your project ID pattern to look, you could put that definition in here. You can do something very simple with a contains or a starts with, ends with, but probably in a lot of cases, you're going to want to use a simple pattern. And what a simple pattern does is allows you to build out the pattern that you're expecting to see for, in this case, the project code or the project ID. So let's say I want to have uppercase letters and I want to see 2 uppercase letters. Now, after that, I want to see 5 digits, so 5 numbers. So then I can say, all right, next I want to see 5 digits. Then I want to see a dash. So I can go into this specific text. I can say, now then I want to see a dash. And then anything after that is whatever. It can be whatever because maybe it's the name of the site or the project or whatever. So then I can say any character, however many, unlimited number. So I'm going to put 0 here to denote unlimited. And then it's going to check this when I run a scrub. So this is for those specifications. It's not going to change anything in this case, but it is going to allow you to test that. So you can say I have nothing in there. It's telling me that it doesn't match. This doesn't adhere to what I built out. But if I were to go in and grab one that did match and it did follow this pattern, it's going to give me a green box. So you can actually test it as well prior to using it to scrub on your files. And yet again, you can do this for your names, both and IDs at the project and activity levels. So did I miss anything, Nicole? I think I hit everything that I needed to.
Yeah, I think so too.
Okay. So before I actually hand it back over, are there any questions that we'd like to that we need to answer? I just want to make sure.
I don't see any right now, so
Okay.
I think we're okay.
Okay. Then I'm going to let Nicole take it back and she's going to wrap it up.
Okay, sounds good. I'll take back control. And I'll share the presentation. Okay, good. So hopefully you got a good feel for how easy the definitions are and how you can reuse these. So when you have an import that needs to come in from, let's say, a contractor, you may have in their contract that they have to give an update every week, every 2 weeks, every month. The idea is you would save the definition and reuse it every time. And when you get the new file, it will just highlight anything they've changed, anything new that's coming. So very easy to use. So let's touch on what some of the feedback is on the benefits from our clients. So the ability from a user, the ability to save some time and easy use, right? So being able to give the contractor feedback in minutes on what's in their schedule, very, very quick, because you can see these types of changes. So very, very quick and easy to give feedback. You don't have so much manual work to deal with, making sure certain things are met, certain criteria are met. So that's going to save a lot of time. Because it's configurable, you can save the definition, very easy to use. With all those flags, you can see where things are not as expected or new things have been added. Because that is really important, because that would take you a lot of time if you didn't have a tool that highlighted them for you. And then what this brings to the table as well is it keeps P6 clean. Now that's important because more and more of our clients are using third-party reporting engines, often with our P6 reporter in the middle, to start to disseminate data outside of the P6 community. Okay, so to really give the data out to management teams, senior managers, mid-level managers, different area managers, and so on. So you want to make sure that the data is coming across cleanly to, let's say, Power BI or Tableau, and not getting collided or modified accidentally through these imports. Okay, so that's one of the huge benefits. And then that means the data that they're seeing and working with is more accurate. Okay, if you want to run a report on discipline or vendor, as Sue was showing you, you don't want the same vendor in there 4, 5, 6 different ways. Okay, so this gets the data in accurately and helps on the ongoing reporting. Okay, so those are really important pieces. And of course, the biggest benefit is just the time saving, less time wasted doing cleanup, less time wasted dealing with reports and things that don't work. So that's really important. Our time is valuable and we need to be helping manage the project more efficiently. Okay, great. So P6-Scrubber is just one of many tools that Emerald has. We've been full service partner with Oracle, well, with Premier before Oracle for the last 28 years. And we've had programmers on the team from the very beginning because I had worked in claims and disputes and understood how data management, how important that was. So we've always focused on integration, automation, and the data aspects of the system. Thus, we have such a broad toolkit. So if you haven't seen some of our other webinars, please go to our webinar page and take a look at that. And we've got new ones coming up every week. So we've got our updating tools, our taps and caps tools, which are fantastic. One is with barcodes and one is a web-based, tabular-based, very easy to use updating. So those can be very interesting because updating can be a struggle. Then, of course, you've seen the scrubber, and I mentioned the reporter tool that takes the data out of P6 and allows you to get that into third-party reporting engines, which is more and more, we're seeing more and more clients do this. Okay, so you want to do that in a simple, clean way. You don't want to be dealing with Excel files. You don't want to be dealing with XER files. You just want a nice, simple, automated way for that to happen. So those are some interesting ones to look at. And we've got others as well. We've got our P6 calculator, which lets us do all sorts of additional things in P6. And our P6 QA tool, which lets you critique a schedule very quickly, also very repeatable, and right inside P6. You don't need any extra third-party expensive software tools. Okay, so I think that's everything, and I don't see any questions right now. So how about if we wrap it up here? If you do think of a question later and you want some follow-up, you've got Sue's email there, and you've got our Philippines number, and you can reach out to Donna Yu at emerald-associates.com as well if you want someone in the Philippines, in the APAC region, to communicate with. So I think I'll stop the recording there and we can stay on for another minute, but right now, no questions. So thanks so much for attending. Hope you found some value in it and feel free to reach out to us for further information.